The Most Powerful Magic by FicFicPonyFic. Quite possibly one of the oddest structures in Ponyville was the treehouse growing in the center of town. Not only was it hollowed out oak living despite ponies having taken residence in it, it was flourishing, and it was taller than some of the more normal looking domicils in the area. In addition, the tree contained the town's one and only library. While the library was never a particularly popular spot in town, it was almost never empty like it was currently. Its unicorn caretaker was not there perusing the shelves, pulling down anything that interested her. In fact, the caretaker's dragon assistant had made sure that the place was clean before he had left for the day's errands. Were the library a sentient being capable of speech, it might have expressed some thanks for the bit of privacy it was granted this day. However, like all good things, it would not last. A purple blur crashed through the entrance of the library, not bothering to close the door behind her. She knew that its flimsy wood would not stop her pursuer for long. As quickly as she could, she ran up the stairs leading to her room and slammed the door behind her. Hearing trampling hoofsteps bounding up the stairs, she lit her horn and picked up her bed, her dresser, and anything else she could lift with her magic and piled them up against the door. Throwing herself against the makeshift barrier, she braced herself for an impact, which quickly came with a loud thump and a surprised "Ow!" Twilight Sparkle sighed with relief. Her barricade had only budged slightly at the collision. Shifting the load in front of the door slightly, she peeped through the keyhole. On the other end was a pink-maned earth pony with her eyes closed, rubbing her forehead in pain. Twilight was hit with a twinge of regret for hurting her friend, but it was soon wiped away when the pink party pony suddenly jumped up on all fours and knocked on the door with her head, causing the fortification to rock much more than Twilight thought possible. Pulling her attention away from the keyhole, Twilight adjusted the items in front of the door as best as she could in case her friend attempted another assault on her temporary fortress. Our first date, and already you want me to take you back to your bedroom? Oh, I must be good. Oh, but Twilight, you silly filly, you locked the door with me on the wrong side, Pinkie Pie said.
What made you think that we were on a date?
Twilight said with a thrill of horror, a heavy box she had been repositioning falling out of mid-air as she lost concentration. Well, duh! When I asked you out, you were so happy you screamed! Then we went on a romantic jogging tour of Ponyville. Don't you remember? Is all that knowledge in your head knocking away your memories? That only happened like a few minutes ago, Twilight, Pinkie Pie replied with a snorting giggle.
I remember running quite well, but I assure you I don't remember anything about that being a date. I don't even like you like that, Pinkie Pie,
Twilight said with a small grumble. The bookish unicorn thought that Pinkie Pie had a rather skewed view of the events that had just transpired. Twilight had been sitting in the park, minding her own business and reading a book about Haman's lost lectures on planetary motion when she had been tackled by a pink blur screaming a war cry of, "My one true love!" She had managed to pry herself from the obviously crazed earth pony and tried her best to lose her amongst the various back streets and houses in Ponyville. Pinkie seemed to be 2 steps ahead of wherever she went, as everywhere the princess protege tried to run, she was ambushed by the bubblegum pink pony appearing out of the container or a flower pot, or one of the frighteningly memorable occasions out of a cake when she had tried seeking refuge at the Sugar Cube corner. What? That's impossible! You have to love me, Twilight! What the most powerful magic is in this or any of the other world is bringing us together! Couldn't you sense it? Can't you feel it? Pinkie Pie begged. Clearly, her friend had finally cracked. Twilight always thought that Pinkie Pie was a bit more unhinged than most of her other ponies in this town, but she was clearly having some sort of mental breakdown. Twilight had been worried about her recently. The day after Rarity and Fluttershy, congratulations, you two finally got together. What took you guys so long, party? She seemed to get rather clingy, and her antics rather more frantic. This trend continued and worsened after Rainbow Dash and Applejack got together, and as calmly as possible, the concentrated unicorn said,
I'm sorry, but I don't like you in that way, Pinkie.
You cannot deny Pinkie Sparkle, Pinkie Pie said, cutting off Twilight and banging on the door with her hoofs. Now open this door so we can confess, and make passionate love, and get married, and somehow have lesbian babies through the use of magic. Shocked by the bluntness, Twilight replied,
Pinkie Pie, what are you saying? That's crazy.
You're right! Pinkie Pie interrupted again, giggling. What was I thinking? Twilight Pie rolls of the tongue so much better.
Pinkie,
Twilight said, a little more sternly. No good? How about Twilight Pie?
Pinkie! I do not like you in that way,
bellowed Twilight in a voice louder than she meant it to be. There was a silence, and then she heard a soft popping noise, followed by something that sounded akin to the deflation of a balloon. Peeping out the keyhole once again, Twilight saw a dejected-looking pink pony sitting on her haunches, looking at the door, her hair hanging loosely at her sides. In a voice that made Twilight's heart almost break in two, Twilight said, Can't you even give her love a chance? You might like it and be happy. At which point her spastic friend lunged at the keyhole, forcing her head through, and her exclamation of "Forever!" cut short by a pair of purple hooves doing their best to shove the furry pink intruder back to the side of the door the rest of her body was on. After that, there was a silence that seemed to stretch on for a good minute. Looking out the keyhole again, she saw a pair of big blue eyes staring back at her. Feeling that she should break the law in conversation, Twilight Sparkle asked,
I'm sorry, Pinkie Pie. This is just so random, even for you. It's completely out of nowhere. I mean, you've never shown any affection for me before like this. Why now all of a sudden?
Never shown any affection? Do you remember the first thing I did when I saw you in Ponyville? Pinkie said.
You jumped into the air and gasped?
Yeah! And what did I say to you?
Nothing. You kinda ran away after that to plan a party.
Pointing over at Twilight, Pinkie said, Exactly! I was just so stunned by your beauty, your grace, your obvious intelligence, I couldn't speak! I couldn't think of anything to say! Have you ever seen me unable to say anything? That would be like Applejack not being able to buck a tree, or Rainbow Dash not wanting to raise someone. It just doesn't happen. I knew that when I saw you, that what I needed to do was something extra special to get your attention. So I threw you the biggest welcoming party I could ever have thrown, and invited every single pony in Ponyville. I brought my favorite hot sauce for the cupcakes. I even brought my favorite game, Pin the Tail on the Pony. I was hoping that when you were having tons of fun and making tons of friends, you would think back to a certain pink pony who made it all happen, and maybe ask her out for pizza or a smoothie or something. Thinking about it, Twilight realized that her welcoming party, the little she saw of it anyway, had been quite a bit more spectacular than any other welcoming party Pinkie Pie had thrown. It was certainly much more grandiose than Gilda's party. At the same time, she had just assumed that what Pinkie Pie did was just throw large parties. But maybe she did care for her. Maybe she just... No. What was she thinking?
Well, be that as it may, that was a bit subtle. I don't know how you expected me to...
What? What about later today? Or maybe I should say the same the next day. It wasn't quite that day after... It wasn't quite day yet after all. Well, whatever. I had a feeling that my true and honest feelings weren't getting through, so I said something to you at the summer sun celebration. Do you remember what it was? Pinkie Pie said, frowning.
It was,
Hitching a giant grin on her face that contrasted horribly with her straightened hair, she said, Isn't this exciting? Are you excited? Because I'm excited. I've never been so excited. Well, except for the time when I saw you walking into town and went... Pinkie Pie stopped there to gasp and make a goofy face, and then she finished, But I mean really, who can top that? Letting the sad look back onto her face, the deflated Earth Pony continued. Why would I say something like that to somebody I just only met hours before, unless there was something deeper meaning to it? Twilight Sparkle didn't honestly have an answer to that question. Once again, she simply assumed it to be part of her bubbly nature. Desperately trying to think of a way out of this, she said,
Even then, that was quite a long while ago. If you had dropped more hints, maybe I might have...
Dropped more hints? Who was the first person I came to when I was having problems with Dashi during the whole Gilda episode? Who was trying their hardest to gather instruments to fight off Paris Price, so that her perfect purple protege pony could have had a nice day with her God Empress mentor? Who did their best to make a certain bookish pony didn't reveal her friend's secrets and lose them friends and be sad. Not to mention how embarrassingly obvious I was when we were fighting over the gala tickets. Pinkie finished with a sigh.
Gala tickets? What do you mean?
Twilight asked, quickly cursing her naturally inquisitive nature. Pinkie Pie flushed slightly, but said, "Once I figured out that those 2 tickets weren't bats, I thought I knew immediately what Celeste wanted you to do with them. A pair of tickets to one of the most prestigious and romanticized events in ponydom? You obviously had it to look for a date. Can you imagine my shock and confusion when every single one of our friends was trying to court you? I mean, I figured it out pretty fast that you were just looking for a companion to go with you. But even if we had just gone as friends, that would have made me the happiest pony in the world. I even did my best with that song I sang."
Song?
Pinkie Pie sighed again and then started singing. "Twilight is my bestest friend, whoopee, whoopee. She's the cutest, smartest, all-around pony. I bet if I throw a super duper fun party, she'll give the extra ticket to the gala to me." That second line is the most important one. For a while, I even thought my feelings had finally gotten through. That day when you found about my pinky sense, you did nothing but follow me around all day. Even if you were just watching me, even if it was just because you wanted to find out more about my pinky sense and nothing more about me, it filled my heart with a joy I haven't felt since the first time I saw that sonic rainbow. You even strapped me to a machine down in your basement. I mean, I was a bit disappointed because that didn't end up going in the direction your father was going, but it was still exciting nonetheless, Pinkie Pie said, a single tear sliding down the side of her face. Twilight hadn't heard most of the last paragraph, however. She had simply sat with her mouth hanging open. She wasn't even looking through the keyhole anymore. She was just too shocked. How had she not realized how much Pinkie Pie had cared for her? After that marvelous pink pony, pink like the glorious rise of dawn, now that she thought on it a little longer, had explained that the love she felt almost seemed far too obvious. Twilight knew that she wasn't the most socially aware pony around, but she thought she was better than that. Maybe she should...
Hey, Pinkie, let's give us a shot. I must be crazy, but let's try,
Twilight said, carefully removing the lighter objects from the top of the pile in front of the door. Almost immediately after this announcement, Twilight heard a sound like air rushing into something. Handing the flower pot she was holding to the pony behind her, Twilight glanced through the keyhole again and saw no cotton candy maned pony, then quickly realized that there shouldn't be a pony behind her. She spun around to see the puffy pink hair and sky blue eyes looking happily back at her.
Pinkie, how did you get inside this room?
Taking no notice of the question, other than a brief silence and a blink, Pinkie Pie said, "Did you mean that? Did you mean what you said? Did you mean it when you said you love me forever and ever and never want to be apart from me?"
Well, I didn't say exactly all that, but...
Twilight didn't get to finish, as her mouth was quickly filled with a pretty pink party pony's perky tongue. Twilight had her eyes open in shock at first, but then she slowly closed them as the feeling of Pinkie Pie's lips washed over her. This wasn't like being kissed on the cheek or on the forehead. It burned, but it burned in a good way. A fulfilling burn that filled her whole body. Through this, however, something Pinkie Pie said earlier entered her head and wouldn't leave. Freeing herself from Pinkie, and making a slight suction noise in the process, Twilight asked,
Pinkie Pie, when you said one of the most powerful magics in the world was bringing us together, did you mean the magic of friendship?
"No, silly!" Pinkie Pie giggled. She grabbed Twilight Sparkle around the shoulders with one leg and pointed out the window with another. "It was a special kind of magic, one that can be cast by any pony, a magic known for being the ultimate ad hoc reasoning, a magic older than ponydom itself." Grabbing the purple unicorn suddenly by both shoulders and staring straight into her eyes, she continued, "The magic of pairing despairs." Looking at Pinkie, Twilight said, confused,
Pairing the...
But all questions were quickly put out of her mind as Pinkie Pie planted another deep kiss on her lips.
Whatever this magic is.
Twilight thought to herself, wrapping her hooves around Pinkie Pie's neck.
I approve greatly.
The end.